Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys already know how we're doing it. We're bringing some great people for you guys, and today you guys are going to be truly, truly impressed. And I can't say that enough. If you guys are a fan of David Goggins, you guys are going to be impressed with Nick. Nick is bringing a lot of things to the table, mental toughness, but he has a story that goes along with that. So I need you guys to sit back, relax, take some notes, ask some questions, put them in the comment section. But before we get started, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. But most importantly, this is for educational purposes only. So you guys sit back and enjoy. My next guest is going to blow you guys away. Nick, welcome to the show, brother. Been waiting for this for a very long time.
Tony, thanks for having me, man. I've been excited to be here.
I appreciate that. And for everyone else who's tuning in, we are streaming live on all of these different channels. So if you guys haven't seen it on one, please go over to the other ones and catch it over there for me, right? You know, I'm not asking for a subscription, but not unless you think that I'm worthy of it. So now, Nick, introduce yourself, tell people where you're from.
All right. My name is Nick Klingensmith. Apparently, I wrote badass in the description from a previous time I was on this platform. So Nick Klingensmith, badass, motivational speaker, best-selling author, and mindset coach. I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I've been living and working in Florida for the past, forever, 20 years.
Oh, my God, man. How did you come up with the term badass, right?
It was a joke. I was on a podcast with a couple of guys in the freight industry. And we were just talking about my story and overcoming obstacles and, some of the physical challenges that go through it. And, they just kept calling me a badass. And so, I was invited on during a live show. They were just having a panel and a couple other guests on. And so I just chimed in, and it was a Friday afternoon. It was a laid back atmosphere. And so rather than say motivational speaker or stride badass.
I love it, man. I love it. And because it tells the story of who you are, right? And how you became who you are. We talked a little bit. If you're not learning something about yourself, you're kind of stagnant in this world. And, again, I compared your story after talking with you to that of Mr. David Goggins, and I bow down gracefully and humbly to, just to be able to showcase your story, right? You know what I'm saying? Such an inspirational guy. Let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about how you became who you are, overcoming the obstacles.
Man, it's funny because I could go back to my places of hell like Goggins did when he started his story, but and I think we all have a frame of reference, but really my story kicks off when I was first diagnosed with cancer. The first time I was diagnosed with cancer, it was 2005. It was just about this time of year, and I was scared. I was a young kid, I was 20 something years old, working in telecom sales, living by myself in Massachusetts. And I don't really care who you are. The brakes get hit when you hear those words. You have cancer for the first time. And over the next several years, not only did I get cancer once, I ended up getting it 4 times. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, started sleeping with a CPAP. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have 7 herniated discs from 2 different rollover car accidents, nerve damage, both from multiple surgeries and from a car accident, meningitis. I went all 12 rounds with COVID. I even had terrorists put a nerve gas bomb threat on my airplane once. So there was a lot of things that I had gone through, in my life. But a key moment really came to me 7-8 years ago. A little over 7 years ago, when my boss walked into my office and he said, "Nick, I want to do a Spartan race and you're doing it with me." I looked up at him and I'm like, no, no, fuck no. An 8 to 10 mile trail run with obstacles. That's like the worst thing I ever heard of. I never wanted to be that uncomfortable. So I went home that night though, and I reflected upon everything that I just talked about and everything that I had been through. And here I was sitting there and life was good, man. I had a girl I was just starting to date. That's my now wife. I had just been promoted at work, and I had just beaten cancer decisively for the 4th time. And yet I was lost. I found myself soft. And it occurred to me that I hadn't overcome my adversity. I had only survived it. I hadn't done anything but be a victim all that time. And so I knew I needed a change, and I told him yes. The race was 7 weeks away, and for the next 7 weeks, one little incremental change led to another incremental change. It started by the very next day. The first thing I did, one of the most uncomfortable things I had ever done, was I set the alarm for 5 a.m. to wake up before work to work out. This was something in my life I thought I was never capable of. You have to understand, I was a guy who woke up a minute and a half before I had to be somewhere. And, you know, as a high functioning alcoholic for a very long time, I'd be out drinking till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, wake up at 6:30, boom, get ready for work. So to be intentional with my time was something that I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was part of who I was. And with that simple act of waking up to exercise, I woke up and I redefined everything that I previously believed about myself. And it just started with one small decision after another. Good habits are a gateway drug, and one good habit just led to another, led to another. And so I ran the race, and I thought it was going to be a one and done. But this feeling of achievement, of serenity, of transformation that I had gone through just over those 9 weeks was something I wanted more of. And so I walked back into my boss's office 2 days later, and we started planning our races for the year. And that was a little over 7 years, 97 Spartan races, 6 major marathons, and about 50 other obstacle course, endurance, sufferfests as well.
I mean, you've overcome cancer twice. You've beat the big one 4 times. Sorry. My mind went to twice. I don't know why, but 4 times, man. That is truly impressive. I mean, I can only imagine being a young man being diagnosed with that. Take us back to that moment where you get that news. What led up into you going in and wanting to find out what was going on with you?
So a couple months before, I was living in a town called Milford, Massachusetts, which is just outside Boston. And I was living in a small 1-bedroom apartment that was probably in a house that was built in like the 1400s or something with the same furnace. And there's a reason I mentioned that, because I started waking up with like a substance on the back of my tongue. I didn't know what it was. Like something was back there. And so I started seeing doctors, and I had already been feeling like sluggish. Like I just, I was like 24 years old, 25 years old. And I just wasn't keeping up anymore. I wasn't keeping up throughout the course of the day. So I started seeing doctors, every doctor. I mean, it started with just the general doctor. I saw I don't remember all the names of them, but basically if there was a way to probe me, they probed me. And because we were trying to
We're not going to get into that detail.
We were trying to find what we had identified as blood. It was dried blood on the back of my tongue. And so we were trying to identify where it was coming from. Was it coming from my throat? Was it coming from somewhere else in my body? What was it that was causing this to happen? And since the blood was just a catalyst that got me seeing doctors, I'll just go ahead and dispel the mystery right now. I never got a definitive answer, but the reason I mentioned about the old heating system in that old apartment was I think it was just my gums were bleeding because it was dry air.
Okay.
I don't think it was. So another way to look at it would be to say that God was telling me I was sick, because when I was at the endocrinologist, he's feeling around my neck, and that's when he goes, "Hey, what's that?" And even though I didn't know much about cancer, I just knew. So we ordered a biopsy, and sure enough, the biopsy confirmed that it was cancer. The reason I was sluggish all the time, by the way, was also not because of the cancer. That's later, as we found out that I have sleep apnea. So it's like all these things really just kind of conspired at once. So the first time, I wasn't really scared going through the process, but I'd be lying if I said that the first time I had cancer, I wasn't scared. Of course I was scared. To hear those words, "You have cancer," for the first time. Usually when you aren't already touched by cancer, what you know about cancer is chemo and death. And so when I heard those words, like, what is my life going to be like in order to survive, was the only thing that came to mind. Like, I was petrified. And I also didn't want, it's like I wanted everybody to know, but I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want anybody to talk to me about it. And so I didn't tell anybody about it. I carried it with me a lot around, and I don't know, it was weird. It was like this thing that you don't talk about. Like I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. And I think really I just didn't want them to know that I was scared. So as part of this journey, as part of everything that I talked about, I'm only now able to admit that I was scared. I'm only now at a point in my life where I'm actually strong enough to admit to myself and others that I was scared when I got cancer, and that, you know what? I'm scared when I get it again. That I was scared of what life was going to be like when I was diagnosed with diabetes, that I was scared. I was petrified of what life was going to be like without alcohol. Like to all these things that I had buried for years were just the more physical stuff I had happen to me was almost like a defense. Put it this way, it was easier dealing with cancer than it was to deal with my feelings about cancer, because I was able to go through the process, and they took my thyroid out. They gave me something called radioactive iodine, which is just a pill. It's not radiation. It's not that invasive. You don't feel anything. You feel fine. It's kind of a weird situation. You literally walk into a room where everybody's wearing hazmat suits. They have to hand you something out of a Dixie cup that you can't touch it. It's a pill, but you're supposed to put it in your mouth. And then you have to go hide from the world for 3 days. You literally can't be around other human beings, or you're radioactive. So it's an interesting mix. But as far as cancer treatments go, man, I got the easy route. I had some surgery, I had that radioactive iodine, and then I have to take pills every day for the rest of my life. But 2 years later, I got it again. And I was scared the first time. I was mad the second time. I was really angry about it. I'm like, I just went through this shit. And between the first two cancers, sleep apnea, nerve damage, diabetes. And when I got diabetes, I asked the dumbest question I can ask. And I say, haven't I had enough?
Oh, yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Oh, you can't do that.
God's like, nope. I guess not. Here you go.
Oh, fuck, man.
So, and I was just talking about this earlier too. Like, I was rageful. I actually, there was an issue with the EKG or something during pre-op. And so 48 hours before my surgery for my second cancer, the doctor canceled the surgery. And they said it had something to do with my heart during the pre-op testing. You can keep in mind, I was 27 or something at this time, maybe 28. I was in good health. And I'm like, I'm all heart, dude. There is nothing wrong with my heart. And I couldn't get answers out of anybody about anything. I didn't know when the surgery was going to be rescheduled. I didn't know what my prognosis was. The medical community is so desensitized at times, like to the fact that, hey, I'm a human being. Like, I'm supposed to get married in 2 months. Am I going to be alive for that? I wasn't getting any sort of like communication. I wasn't looking for compassion. I was looking for humanity. And my fear manifested in rage. And so I had basically come to a point where, yeah, no, fuck it. I lost my goddamn mind at how I was being mistreated by this one doctor's office. And I fired them 48 hours before surgery. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I fired them the day before surgery.
Jesus.
I was like, you know what? Fuck it. They're like, huh? I was like, I want my medical records. You're fucking fired. And I was probably saying this even more misbehaved than I'm saying it now. And they were like, well, it takes 4 to 6 weeks. You got to put it in writing. And I was like, I'll be there in 45 fucking minutes. And you better have that shit waiting for me, or so help me God. And I was screaming. I was making threats. I was not my best self. But I had just read Lance Armstrong's book a couple weeks before that. It's not about the bike. Okay. And whether or not you're a Lance Armstrong fan or not, whether or not you care about him as an athlete or as a human being, it's a good book. And there's a couple lessons I took away from that. And one of them is that I'm not responsible for beating my cancer. The doctors are, science is, God is, a little love and luck is. My job is to live my life, just to live. And I understand that I may have to be a patient, but I'm not about to be a victim. And I am not begging somebody in a doctor's office making like hourly rates to tell me no. I am not begging them for my life. So that was a decision that I get to make. And so I was like, you know what? Fuck it. You're fired. And I didn't care. I went up, they had my medical records ready for me. I was expecting the cops to be there, but they weren't. And then 2 days later, I was introduced to the executive director at Moffitt Cancer Center, which is one of the best cancer centers in the country. So I think it's important that you set boundaries for yourself during these types of experiences, like, would it have been dangerous? Could I have been endangering myself? Maybe, but it was more important to me how I lived than whether or not I impacted how long I was going to live. Yeah. And the results were fine. The surgery went smooth. It was smoother the second time than it was the first. I had to do the radioactive iodine again. I had to get pills, continue to do pills as I do for the rest of my life. And I kind of knew at that point, though, that cancer would come back again. And it did in 2013. 2014. But if I was scared the first time and I was angry the second, this time I was relieved. Because just 3 months before that, my drinking had really come to a peak. And the bad nights were outnumbering the good. My bad behavior was outnumbering the good behavior. I had become a slave to alcohol. It influenced, if not controlled, every one of my decisions. And people were talking about me. People at work were talking about me. I gave people stories at happy hours far too often. And so I decided that I was tired of other people's bullshit and I was going to stop drinking. I didn't have a problem. Everybody else had a problem. And so I was going to stop.
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine how well that worked. And so I was white knuckling it to get by. And then when I got the diagnosis that I had cancer, this time was different because it's the same spot, but it's hidden behind one of my vocal cords and it's borderline inoperable without causing significant risk or damage to other things in the area. They did not want to operate on it. So all I heard was, I have an inoperable cancer, which meant bottoms up, because who was going to mess with me? I could drink and who was going to mess with me? That was my crutch. And so I was actually relieved to have had cancer for the third time. But this time again was a little bit different, because thank God for that, because it helped me reach my bottom, because I took the gloves off and I didn't have to hide it anymore. I just continued to drink until I found the bottom of that bottle, until I found myself just a few months later on the floor of a Las Vegas hotel, surrounded by security and cops who wanted to throw me out because apparently I had gotten in a fight, the reason of which I don't know why. But what I do know is not long before that, I was trying to fuck a hooker in a broom closet while my girlfriend slept down the hallway.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know how much further I had to the bottom, but that was about as close as I was willing to go. Yeah. And so, I was very fortunate that later that night, we both had to go, and my head hit the pillow several hours later when we found a new hotel. And I said out loud, I don't want to live this way anymore. And so I had to leave because I wasn't allowed back at the other hotel. And I flew home back to Tampa, and I immediately started a program of recovery. And that was almost 10 years ago. So I sometimes say that cancer saved my life, because that last cancer, it helped me get there. And then the next 2 years was good. It was, everybody knew that I was a drunk. So I had no problem about knowing that I was in recovery, and I embraced it. I didn't want to live the way that I was living. It was a decision. It had nothing to do with alcohol. I didn't want to be who I was. Alcohol wasn't the cause. It was a symptom. And so by just starting to treat the person and learn who I was, even to begin with, like we just talked about, like I didn't know who I was. And so I spent those first 2 years doing that. And just as I started to get ahead and feel like I had the ground beneath me, that's when I was diagnosed with cancer for the fourth time. And it was that time that I was exhausted. I was tired, and here I was too. You understand, right? I was riding high, man. I just had two of the best years of my life, right? Like I've been sober, like I was accomplishing things. I was excelling in my career. I knew where my car was every day. I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I knew I rarely had to apologize as much anymore. All these things, since I didn't see my past holding me back anymore, all I saw was the opportunity for us to improve. And then all of a sudden I get cancer again, and I don't know, am I going to be alive? This is a different one. This time it was in the back of my head. It wasn't thyroid. It was a different doctor, different diagnosis. I'm not the medical expert. I never become the medical expert in my illness. I always just focus on living my life outside the doctor's office. Mm-hmm. But I said to myself, you can only get cancer so many times and not die. And that's that was my mantra for several months while I was dealing with this, and while I was trying to understand my diagnosis and what was going to be required in order for me to live. Because how many times can you get cancer and not die?
Right.
It was hard. It was hard to process, and I didn't want to talk about it because it wasn't that I was scared I was going to die. This time I just thought that I was. This time I was just certain this has to be it. How many times can I go through this and not fucking die? I hadn't discovered my purpose yet. I didn't know if I had a purpose. At that point, it was just me against the world. And I kept saying, you know what? Someone's really trying to kill me. Someone just really wants me dead. And so I went through another surgery, only this time there was no follow-up. It was simple. They took it out and it was gone. And that was it. For the first time in almost, in over a decade of dealing with cancer, I had someone told me that I was all clear. So I was like in the lowest of low. Seriously, like on the way to work, I was crying. I was trying not to drive in a ditch and just get it over with myself. And yet here I was given a clean slate, clean bill of health. You don't have cancer in the back of your head anymore. And I found myself in this empty space. Instead of being excited to jump after life, all of a sudden, that's when I found out I was lost. And that's what a couple weeks later is when my boss walked into my office and asked me to do that Spartan race. And that's when I had just realized how uncomfortable I already was. Like I had gone through that journey, but I want to say something that it wasn't saying yes to the race that changed my mentality, because with cancer, it went from, I'm so scared I have cancer, to fuck you, cancer, which was really just another manifestation of my fear, to woohoo, bottoms up, cancer. Cause again, I had no other emotion besides anger. So I might as well drink. And the last time it was because I had a life worth losing. Remember, I was sober now. I was in touch with other emotions now. I didn't know how to process this. Right. And that's what had me so damn lost. But I realized something, that all that time, all those mindsets was a victim mindset. All of it was still, all this shit keeps happening to me. That's why I didn't want to talk about it, because I felt like a victim and I didn't want anyone else to see me that way. And so I started doing the Spartan racing, and it was about 7 months later where, I'm feeling good about myself. I'm making changes. I am constantly improving my habits. And the thing is, when you start to change, you can see the reflection in other people. If people start treating you like a jerk, there's a good chance you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
But when they start treating you differently, when they start treating you with encouragement, right? When they start when they look to be in your circle instead of the other way around, that you realize it, you recognize it, you feel good, you want more of it. And you see that you're starting to change for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in a car accident. I got more herniated discs from it. The woman who hit me died. The same day, my cat of 12 years died, and I am deeply affectionate about my pets. They might as well have been like my firstborn child. And I sustained nerve damage. I was pretty badly injured, and I just saw it all being taken away from me. And I didn't even want to go to work. I was lying on the couch just saying I wanted to give up. Problem is, I didn't know what giving up meant. I said I wanted to give up, but I kept going to work. I said I wanted to give up, but I kept going to meetings. And I couldn't let go as much as I wanted to. I just wanted the pain to stop so bad. And there was another Spartan race in October, and I really wanted to do it because I needed to defy. I needed to punch back. I didn't like being on the mat, and even though I was injured and I could barely move my right arm, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to do this race because I just have to take something back. And it was about a month and a half away or something like that. And I remember I was trying to train, and I was outside of my back patio, and I used to actually live on Tampa Bay. So I was out on my dock, and it was like straight out of the movies, because it was August. So, Florida's just flat. So when there's a storm like 100 miles away, you see the storm 100 miles away. And so I'm looking at the storm over Tampa Bay rolling in towards me. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on my dock doing my warm up, and I'm listening to different motivational videos, Goggins, Eric Thomas, stuff like that. And it just hit me that I'm like, I am so fucking sick of being a survivor. What is the value of surviving? Why am I here? To hold on with dear life for what? Why am I surviving? What is the purpose? What is the value of going through all this shit just to stay here and be alive? No, fuck that. I am not a survivor. I am a warrior. I am going to pick a fight. And that was the mentality that morning, that day, that literally was a key moment for me, because I said, fuck it. I'm going to defy everything that stands in my way. I learned how to do one-arm push-ups so I could do the burpee penalty in the Spartan race. In the open division, if you fail an obstacle, you're supposed to do burpees, but nobody's going to kick you out of the race if you don't do them. So especially being injured, I could have skipped them, but I just wanted to punch back. So literally I started with one-arm push-ups, or other arm. It was just this key moment of being like, I need to take control of my life. I need to take something back.
Wow, man. So you beat cancer, you kicked cancer's ass, got sober. That is huge, man. Congratulations on that as well. Coming from a place of understanding, I did battle with alcoholism. I used to tell everybody, look, man, the problem is not, me drinking. The problem is not knowing when to stop, right? I was really good at drinking, but the problem is that I'm a really bad alcoholic, right? You know what I'm saying? And an even worse drunk. And what I mean by that is that I would get drunk and you would never know that I'm drunk. So I would encourage other people to buy alcohol and I would drink with them, right? And then I've developed a philosophy when I was drinking of, tonight's going to end up one of two ways. I'm either fighting or I'm going home with a woman, or I'm going to do both. Because if I'm going to fight this dude and you got a woman, I'm taking her from you tonight and she's coming with me. So it's going to be a whole new it's going to be a whole new problem. But I eventually got sober, and then like yourself.
I'm sorry, I was going to say it's a fickle bitch, and
yeah,
because it lies to you. And I was highly functional, where there was a point where a lot of people wouldn't know I was drunk. However, there then came a point where everyone knew I was drunk except me. It eventually turns on you because you're so used to having this function that, this thing that was a superpower became a kryptonite. And because I'm so used to being able to manage it like a superpower, it's hard to let go. So I'm like, I don't understand. I can drink 30 beers and be fine. Why am I blacking out at 15? Why am I making dumb decisions and saying stupid things to, why are all these bad things just coming out early? Right. You don't realize at the time just how it's a progressive disease. It's a progressive illness. So if I were to pick up now, I have no idea the hell that would rain down around me.
I'm right there with you. Jesus,
and I ain't going to find out, man. Not today.
Yeah, no, I realized that, I was too good at drinking, so I better stop. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because when you understand that you can do something like that and you have the ability to keep doing it, eventually death will come knocking at your door. And since you're already enthralled into that path, you know what I'm saying? It's like a welcoming mat, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep doing it. It's the reality of it just coming in. I'm hurting too many people around me. I better fucking get my shit together, right? But most of all, I'm hurting me most of all, and I better get my shit together. You know what I'm saying? Pretty flat out, man. Pretty simple, right? It's a mental game, as we all know. You know what I'm saying? And the mental game can be a motherfucker, especially if you don't understand how to get in the game.
The hardest thing is just really seeing it from the outside, because it is a mental game. But the problem is that when you are, and I'm sure this is true for much addiction, but I'll speak to my own experience with alcohol, is that it lies to you. Because all right, when I would cheat on my girlfriend, that's pretty obvious I was doing wrong, and I didn't pretend otherwise, okay? But when I wasn't actively cheating on her, I was convinced that I was a good present boyfriend. When I wasn't And the thing is, I didn't drink at work, right? I showed up to work on time all the time. So I just assumed and imagined I'm a good employee, right? I'm getting my work done. My team is performing. I'm functional. But what we don't realize at the time is the times I wasn't cheating on her, alcohol still controlled our lives. Where are we going? Who's driving? How are we going to get there? Is there going to be booze served? I chose alcohol over her. Just because I came home and got into the same bed without having done something wrong didn't mean that I didn't make a selfish decision. Didn't mean that, I wasn't being selfish by drinking and driving and putting our home at risk. Just because nobody got hurt didn't mean that I didn't do a hurtful activity. Just because I was on time at work, just because I could get work done, how selfish am I being to my employer when people don't want to be around you because you may not realize it again because you're getting shit done, but that you are actually hurting the productivity of the people that are around you. And what an asshole and arrogant prick I am to stumble in drunk or hungover from the night before just because I have the mental acuity to get it done. What does that say to my employees? The people that are supposed to look up to me for guidance and respect, like, alcohol doesn't show you these things, and what was I doing to my employer who gave me a tremendous amount of trust and autonomy? Just because I didn't end up in handcuffs didn't mean I wasn't making selfish decisions, and that's where disease lies to you. And by the way, it lies to you when you're sober too, because I'll even give myself an example of this week. Yesterday, I had what I call just like a sad morning. You got to understand, I don't have anything to be sad about. My life is awesome. All right. Like, when I'm sad, I understand fully it is the disease trying to kill me. It is the disease of alcoholism trying to tell me that my life sucks, that I suck, and I might as well just drink myself to death.
Right.
It's a weird thing, but that's the thing about disease is that it's never honest with us. The liar in us is often the disease in us.
Yeah. Now, I love that you said that. I mean, you've gone through the accidents, but you had a 12-round bout with COVID too. I understand the analogy, right? You know what I'm saying? The 12-round being in the ring with it, you know what I'm saying? Having to fight back with it. Let's talk about that experience a little bit.
It's probably not going to be as dramatic as I made it sound. It's just that I had it was January 15th. The reason I know this is because it was my wife's birthday. It was 2022. We ran a 5K that morning, and I felt fine. I started kind of getting a little cranky on the way back from the 5K, but can crank that up to anything. Went home, ate food, took a nap. It was her birthday, so we went out to a steak dinner. I'm feeling good at dinner. By the time we got home, I felt like death, and I had 102 fever. And I had a fever and was symptomatic for like 3 days. Now, I did get my shots. I got the 2 or whatever. I got the Pfizer shots before. So I don't know if maybe I'd be dead without them or if they did nothing, who knows? But I was sick for days. And I mean sick, like a whole week. It was like I was very symptomatic. I still had a fever, like come day 6, like it came and went a little bit. And, I'm immunocompromised, right? So like as a diabetic, I am the underlying issue guy. I wasn't concerned about dying or anything or beyond during my couple of days with it. It definitely fucked with my heart rate, with my blood sugar. But I mean, I just stayed home and slept and then tried to work from home. But I tested positive for 3 weeks. And then here's the thing. After I started going back to work, this is the 12-round part. For the next 2 months, I couldn't make it through a work day. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm dying at my desk. My brain isn't working. I can't think. I can't do anything. I had this fog. Get this. I got lost on the way home from work. There's one way to go. And I took a wrong turn. There's only one way I go home. And I took a wrong turn. And then when I realized I took the wrong turn, I took a different wrong turn. It should have taken me 25 minutes to get home. It took me an hour and a half. And the thing is, I could see myself doing this. It was like you're watching it. You're like, what are you doing? But I wasn't in charge. It was kind of like you're drunk. And but I mean, we were months into it. And literally by the time I would get home, I'd feed the dogs and crawl into bed. I had the worst fatigue. And being the stubborn son of a bitch that I am, I tried to resume a training schedule again, and I was knocking out 16, 17-minute miles to like go easy. It was a pretty shitty experience. And we're talking 2 years later, and I am still dealing with pulmonary issues that cannot seem to be identified as anything else. Doctor and I are both convinced it's just lasting COVID effects.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, when I said all 12 rounds, I just mean I had my own COVID experience. It wasn't like I didn't go to the ER or anything like that. And obviously I'm still here, but still it was harrowing. I mean, the interesting thing about freaking COVID is that this is one of the things that divides everybody is like, you never hear the same story twice. And it affects everybody so wildly and differently. And like, it was, I was glad and relieved to hear that there were other people like me, because that way I understood, like, it was a tough thing, man, to be a high tempo guy like me. I run 30 to 50 miles a week. And all of a sudden I'm like, I couldn't walking the 35 feet from my car to the front door of my office. I needed a break.
Wow, man. And you know what? I'm so thankful that you're here. I'm so thankful that we can have these conversations, because we all have a story with COVID, right? You know, I got sick before it was actually found in the United States.
Oh, so you were like one of those February people who got
no, I was Thanksgiving.
Oh, really?
The Thanksgiving before. So, you see the rumors on TV, COVID is going across this country, and you know what I'm saying, before it was even United States, right? No one even knew. But then I started thinking about it. They were starting to track it. There was a couple that was on the plane, and then it kind of escalated from there. So that Thanksgiving before quarantine, before everything went to shit, everything locked down, I got sick for 2 weeks. I said, you know what? Fuck this, man. I'm gonna go grab me some habaneros, some top ramen. I'm gonna make me some soup, and I'm gonna knock that out. Now, the horror story that came behind it was that after quarantine, my best friend and his family got wiped out in 2 weeks. Now, during this time, during quarantine, I watched 76 families get wiped out from COVID. I was sitting with the men outside of the hospice centers or hospitals and things like that as they were watching their loved ones pass away. So we all have a story, right? Funerals. I've been to funerals and watch whole families get wiped out within a matter of weeks. From that,
you got to keep in mind my circle too. Like,
right? Yeah,
my circle were athletes, and they were not immune. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh no, no one was immune. No one was immune. That's why I said, I'm just thankful that you're here, because the story could have went so differently, especially with everything that you've gone through. So now you've gone through all of this. You're going through the challenges. COVID is around, then showed up in your life. You knocked it around a little bit after it knocked you around, right?
But yeah, it's still COVID 1, Nick 0, but I'm hanging in there.
Hey, you know what? I look at it like it's an even playing field. As long as Nick is still getting up and doing what he's doing and keep giving the world a run for his money, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm just thankful that you're still here to be able to do it, to be such an inspiration by doing the things that you do. Now, speaking of the things that you do, how many marathons have you run, or how many 50Ks have you ran? We talked about this before. And I was just like, nope, I'm not doing no running.
Marathons, I've done 6. I've done the Boston Marathon twice. I've done the New York Marathon. I've done Chicago twice, and I've done the Berlin Marathon as well. For Spartan races, I've completed 97 Spartan races. I have entered in 100. I DNF'd 3 of them, 2 of them at the same location, and 1 in Texas when I got hurt last year. And then I've lost track of the other ones, so I'm going to say probably 50, 5Ks, 10Ks, other obstacle course races, endurance, sufferfest type things. And I've done 6 or 7 50Ks, I think, give or take, around there somewhere. And I'll tell you what, I ran in high school, but I didn't run again until, and I don't hate running as much as Goggins hates running. He's a whole new level though, man, because like or at least his public persona is, because he lives in a pretty nice house, so it's not like he hates all comfort. But but at the same time, that is his life. He is the guy who walks on nails because that's how he continuously develops his mindset. And now that it's his lifestyle brand, he always has to, right? Never finish. Mm-hmm. So mine's a little bit different because I don't have to always be hard. Like, I'm not stay hard all the time. I'm stay hard when you need to be hard. I'm a little over here, I'm a little over there. And as opposed to him, I do need a date on the calendar. It's hard for me to just work out and train every day and just to like put myself into it. So I like to put myself in uncomfortable situations so that I can get tougher and stay resilient. But I know that's what this is. This is controlled adversity. At the end of the day, I'm going home to a warm shower. All right. I'm getting into comfy clothes. I'm going to have a nice bed. Well, probably not. I'm probably staying at some roach motel in the middle of bumfuck nowhere because that's where these things are held. But when I get home, I'm going to be in a nice bed. I'm going to be in a nice bed and I'm getting my comfort, because what I'm doing is I am training for the next hard thing. I'm training for the next crisis. There's always going to be a next crisis. And it's 100% true that it's not just a metaphor. The lessons I learned from these things are the lessons in life. Overcoming obstacles is overcoming obstacles. It requires the same thing. It's about acquiring knowledge and skill and the speed and strength and adapt to the thing that you need to do and defining the obstacle. This is the same, whether it be overcoming a 10-foot wall on an obstacle course, overcoming an injury, overcoming a job loss. Assess the situation, find out how to beat the obstacle, develop the skills and strength and knowledge necessary to do so, and fucking execute. So whether it be in the middle of bumfuck Texas or trying to find a new job or trying to pay the mortgage or get through a disease or illness, accept the circumstance, accept the course you're on, define the obstacle, develop the skills and knowledge, speed, strength, whatever it is in order to get there, and get after it. And don't stop until you do.
Now you've managed to take all of this and turn it around, and you became a motivational speaker as well, right? What was the deciding factor? Was that?
I said new to the space, but yes.
Yeah. What drove you into that space though? Was it to get your story out there? You know what I'm saying? Just to, be like, fuck it, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to inspire someone else through the things that I've gone through. Because I'm a firm believer in that. I just got done telling somebody this. It's okay to grab onto someone else's beliefs and their strength till you are able and strong enough to develop your own. Because we get knocked around. It's easy to stay down, right? It's real easy to stay down. The problem is that when we surround ourselves with soft individuals, people who are good with staying in that suck, it's easy. You are your circle with them.
Because the people in that suck who want to stay in that suck are just going to complain about the suck, and they're going to tell you why that you have to complain about the suck and that you can't get out of the suck and how much it sucks and it sucks and it sucks and it sucks. If that's the conversation you're hearing, guess what? You suck. Walk away, because negative people attract negative people. Everybody's allowed to vent, all right? If I get diagnosed with a new thing tomorrow, I'm going to be in a bad fucking mood tomorrow.
Yeah. I
might be in a bad mood the next day too, but chances are I'm just going to assess the situation and start moving forward after that, Mm-hmm. It's a great example too, because I know we keep talking about Goggins, right? He's someone I look up to, absolutely, but I only take 5%.
Yeah.
I only take maybe 5% away from, him. I'm not trying to be him. I've learned a lot about mindset and I apply it and adapt it to my own life, because I'm trying to take things from a lot of people. I'm trying to take things from you. I'm trying to take things from everybody I'm talking to. Oh, yeah. And, there's a lot of that mindset and mentality. So a couple quick interesting stories, because that's how I have to do it. When I was in the first grade, the teacher gave us this little writing assignment. I don't remember what it was, but I remember I go walk up to her and she gave me a bad grade. And I was like, what the fuck is this? She hands it back to me and I go, what is this bad grade? She goes, you can't start a sentence with the letter and, or with the word and. And I said, I didn't. And she goes, yes, you did. See? And I go, no. And I walked back to my desk and I got the writing assignment from the other day. And I said, see, it blew her mind that what she was looking at was the second page. I was writing a book while everybody else was writing like 3-sentence blurbs about some dream they had. Right. So that was the first time that something stuck into my head that, like, I'm different than the other kids at this.
Right.
And next thing, it was fourth grade, and we write some little thing, and I wrote this little detective novel, like 6 pages or something like that. When I was done reading it, the class stood up and clapped for me. And I'm like, so I just like to write. I always had a journal and a notebook, and I just write like whatever's in my brain, and I just write and write and write. So when I published my book, Through the Fire, in 2021, I got to achieve that dream of publishing a book. And this is something that's interesting. I used to complain about my diabetes to my old boss. And then all of a sudden, like, he was like, "Oh, that sucks." I go, "Yeah, you know what? That's why I get to write a book, because I had something to write about." And I knew at that point, though, because I wrote the book for me, but I published it for you. I published it for anyone who might need to find or hear that story in there that might help motivate them or inspire them and help them through some tough time, or just to know that they aren't alone, because I have gone through so much of this shit that it makes it just relatable to a lot of people. Like, I don't think there's anything unique about me. I have relatable stories that resonate with people. And because people started opening themselves up to me, that's when I realized that it's a gift. It's a gift, and I need to give it away, and it's helpful to me. But it was actually the year before I published the book that I truly discovered my purpose. And it just hit me one morning while warming up. And I'm like, because I always said that I was meant for a long, hard climb, but my purpose is to overcome every obstacle and inspire others that they can too. It just popped into my head while I was doing my warm up one morning. I'm like, this is what I do now. This is just how I live. And a little throw to Goggins when he's like, this is your new normal, when, this is how it is, when you get used to waking up at 4 a.m., this is my life now. Well, this is my life now. When I hurt myself in a race a couple months ago, I'm like, well, now I just overcome a hamstring injury, and I know how to overcome a hamstring injury. Now that I have 2 really big giant holes in my floor because the plumbers had to tear up my floor a couple weeks ago, I'm like, okay, well, now I overcome this. I'm building a new business now. It's the same thing. How do I overcome paying my bills this month? How do I do this the next month? How do I scale then? Just constant movement. But when you realize that you have that, you just have to get it out there, man. That's why we connected. You got a positive message to get out there. I got a positive message to get out there, and you are your circle. So I want to connect with like-minded people.
Yeah, man. And we got many more to come too, man, because you just don't get rid of me like this. It ain't gonna be one of those things. Oh, it was on 20. Nah, man, I'll be reaching out to you. Hey, man, I'm thinking about doing this, man, or what I'm saying, I'm thinking about traveling and would like to connect with you, man. Because I'm always doing things, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm always a firm believer. I built a platform, and what good is having a platform if you can't bring other people and shed light on them, but also being able to be in that moment with individuals as well, because it's a give, right? You know what I'm saying? We're not taking away from each other. We're pouring it to each other. And here we are, you know what I'm saying? I'm at all with you, you know what I'm saying? Such an inspiring story, such a strong, and I'm taking away so much. And I want the audience to take that away from as well, right? The mental toughness, because we talk about mental toughness, but you live it. You know what I'm saying? As you said, this is your new norm.
It is now, right? I think you have to recognize it, because we aren't born resilient. We have to build it.
Right. We have to learn.
A lot of people say you're born with grit, but if you look at just human beings, it's the exact opposite, because we're born to run away from danger, right? Self-preservation is what's keyed into us. Mm-hmm. You have to develop grit and resilience. And, if you've been through some shit, like you've been through some shit, I've been through some shit, like, you're still here. You're either on the couch in the fetal position crying, or we're sitting right here talking about it because we're more resilient now. Exactly. If you haven't been through some shit, go get in some shit. Go find some adversity. Actively fuck your life up. Like, go run into the metaphorical.
I love that right there.
I talk about that all the time. A buddy of mine reached out once, and he was like, well, I don't know how to do this, man, because I haven't been through what you've been through. I said, go be through some shit. Go do something hard. I'm like, and the thing is, you don't have to act. Well, I'm not saying like go live out in the woods for a month. Like, go do an obstacle course race, take a 5-minute cold shower, wake up 5 minutes earlier, skip a meal, and buy a vet lunch. Just do shit that's uncomfortable to you, a little at a time. And every time you're just a little uncomfortable and you're still alive at the end of it, you are tougher.
I love that, man. And you wrote a book. You got to. Where can people find your book?
Through the Fire. Through the Fire, the story of the 4-time cancer survivor, type 1 diabetic, and recovering alcoholic who became an obstacle course racer and defied it all, is on Amazon. It's available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And on Monday of next week, February 19th through the 23rd, it will be free for download. So if you have the Kindle or any e-version, the free Kindle app, just download away, leave a good review. And, you know, that whole, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all thing comes to mind.
You know, I need a signed copy because, you know what I'm saying, I got mine too. So, you know, if you send me your address, man.
We're going to switch some addresses here in a little bit. We'll
yeah, most definitely. And I do have your information down below, but just a reminder for everyone as we begin to wrap this thing up, how can people find you?
I am everywhere on the internet at Stride Motivation, because my last name is obnoxious. So Stride Motivation. Also, website is stridemotivation.com, or you can email me directly at booking@stridemotivation.com.
Awesome. And I always ask my guests this as well. If you had any encouraged words for the audience, what would you leave them with?
Yeah, we're gonna fire some people up today. Live inspired. That's how I finish every one of my videos. And it is not just a phrase, it is a mantra. Inspiration is everywhere. You just have to open your eyes to it. Inspire yourself. Every time we do something harder, every time we step outside of our comfort zone, we redefine the space that we're living in. Do something inspiring. Inspiration is a self-renewing energy source. Yeah. Live inspired.
I love that, man. Nick, brother, thank you for coming in and let me be a visitor in your world today, man. Such an inspiring story. Looking forward to having many more conversations with you. And man, you know, so afterwards we'll exchange information and everything, because I would like to stay in contact with you. You know,
yeah.
Just to see what Nick got going on in his world, right? You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we do need that inspiration. We do need to be around like-minded individuals. Someone that can say, hey, I know you like that piece, but get your ass up, man. You know what I'm saying? Come on, let's go do this, right? For everyone else who's tuning in, if you guys have made it all the way to the end and taken some away from this, do me a favor, go check out Nick, right? And let him know that Tony sent you. Go check out his book. I'm sure you guys are going to be blown away. But if you made it all the way to the end, do me a favor, head over to that YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. And as always, we love you guys. Thank you for your continued support. This is going to conclude another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. I will see you guys in the next episode. Love you. Peace. So does